Normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
From the Daily Mail, younger Americans fearing 2024 election could spark a civil war are preparing for disaster. 40% of Gen Z have spent money on doomsday preparations, new survey finds. And it was 2,179 U.S. adults in January to February. And they found 40% had bought prepping supplies. And the majority believe it's because there may be civil unrest or civil war in the next year.
I wonder what prepping supplies counts as, because if they're just like, oh, well, they bought a handgun and that's prepping supplies, I'm a little leery about whether they're actually interested in preparing for emergencies. But if they're just like, well,
I don't think it's that simple. I think they were asked if they'd spent money preparing for emergencies. So it's likely going to be flashlights.
I changed the batteries in my fire alarm.
Yeah, there's so many. I got a life straw.
We got a bunch of them.
Yeah,
we probably have like 50 downstairs.
I ordered
They're
a
awesome.
machete. You know, like I got a knife. I got a life straw. I got extra shoelaces just
buy
in case
tourniquets.
I have to go hunting.
Buy blowout kits. Buy tourniquets and gauze.
So it seems like a large portion are concerned, but I do think that the headline is a bit misleading. The reality is 40% of Gen Z has spent money on preparing for an emergency. Now, how many of them are doing it because they fear civil war? I don't know if it's that much. That's actually not stated in the story. But I do think the fact that Gen Z has actually considered buying things. These are people who claim to be broke, can't afford food, can't afford to buy homes, are saying the boomers ripped them off and stole all the wealth and all that stuff. But they're going to spend money preparing for disasters. It says one of two things. One, Gen Z is, as we already mentioned before, more conservative and thinking long term, and that's all it really means. Or in their world, they are seeing things that give them reason to believe emergencies, disasters, and potential conflict may be arising in the future. The reason why boomers are probably less likely to do things like this is because in their minds, civil war is not possible. But to Gen Z, society is already broken. I mean, these are young people who are teenagers in the first recession, and they're watching all that happen around them. Millennials, I'd imagine, would be in a similar place. Or I wonder if this suggests projection as to what they think is going to happen in 2024. Meaning, many Gen Z people, not all of them, not necessarily the plurality, are far left, are engaging in acts of violence every day. And so the reason they believe they need to prepare for disasters is because they might be the disaster.
So I think you're spot on. I think the only way an actual like open civil war happens is if Republicans take back power and then the left starts doing activity.
No, I don't think so.
You think it could be started by a right winger?
I think it will, in 99% chance, be started by a right winger.
I don't know. I think that I just don't see it. I think all of the talk about the right wing starting a civil war, I just think it's LARPing.
What are the hot catalyst issues that could lead to a civil war in this country?
Donald Trump getting elected.
In what way? Like the Democrats, you think will go and target states and?
Yeah, I think. Well, no, I think you'll see BLM and Antifa on steroids. I think that you will have. They really do believe that he is Hitler. I mean, they have been brainwashed to believe that he is.
I think maybe neolibs do, but when Trump got elected the first time, we had a large riot in D.C., and that was kind of it. And then it wasn't until the summer of love that things got truly, truly bad. It's possible that if Donald Trump won in 2020, West Coast states would have seceded from the Union as per that Boston Globe report, which could be the catalyst for a civil war. And so that's a more direct, formal. However, Republicans are more likely in that regard to just be like, see you later. So what I actually see is abortion, border security, and foreign war. I think like Antifa, maybe would try and facilitate some kind of escalation of conflict. They believe they are because they want to destroy the system and burn it down. But in terms of issues that are affecting this country that could lead to someone actually getting organized and calling for conflict, I feel like it's more likely to come from someone on the right. Meaning, I've talked about Oklahoma and Colorado sharing a border, where Oklahoma has banned abortion in all cases, and Colorado has allowed it up to the point of birth. That's the kind of oil and water mixture happening right there on the border that can result in major conflict. You've also got child sex changes. Is it going to be a leftist who brings a bunch of guns and opens fire on law enforcement and government because a child was not able to get a sex change, or is it going to be a father and a crew of his friends who get armored vehicles, drive into California to rescue a child who was captured or kidnapped by someone to give them a sanctuary sex change operation in the States?
And maybe that is what, maybe the left, they're passing those laws in Washington and Minnesota and California that allow the state to kidnap kids that end up making
not even the state, third parties. So I think it could be Oregon. I believe it's Oregon. A random person could bring a child from anywhere to that state for a sex change, and the state will not go after that person who did.
Maybe they're baiting. Maybe they're trying to get someone provoked.
Maybe, but my point is, the left is playing this game where it's just the destruction of the system all around everyone. That when they take institutions, they destroy it. They wear it like a skin suit. If it is going to escalate to a conflict, it's already the left, the federal government, the Biden administration that are targeting and destroying things. If it's going to become a civil war, it's going to be because someone on the right did something.
I can kind of identify with
I guess
what
we can
saying.
real quick. I guess we can say it this way: the left is already engaged in the conflict. It's not a civil war because only one side is engaged in violence.
Yeah, if so, you take the hypothetical that Trump got elected again, and then there were riots again, like there were last time, for whatever reason. But last time I was like, where's the National Guard? Why is it 3 days now? On the third day, I was like, what? They haven't stopped these riots. So let's say the National Guard does get called up this time. And then some nihilists in the crowd that are rioting are like, I'm going to die for this cause. They have fully given up and they're willing to die. They charge a police officer, try and grab his gun, get shot.
Already happened.
Killed. Yeah, that kind of thing I can see, like crazy disillusioned nihilists that maybe are wearing all black and they just run at like that could then the media will be like, cops, gun down, and you're like, well, geez, and then the media in flames. I could see like that. But my real concern is the power goes out, the internet goes out, and then just dudes show up at your house with weapons and stuff.
I think the most likely scenario is essentially that there is some small little thing, relatively small, and the government says, we've uncovered a plot. And now they start rounding up people. I think I think Democrats in power is much more Nazi-esque, right?
Well, Republicans aren't going to do what you described, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're Antifa, if you're actually a militant group,
Trump is not going to start rounding up leftists.
No, he won't. I agree.
But I think the Democrats literally already are.
And they're getting away with it. Getting away with it.
And right, and there are January 6 defendants who showed up an hour after the riot, walked upstairs with no barricades, no glass. Cops waved people and opened the doors, and they were waving little American flags like, what's going on here? And then they were like, now you're an insurrectionist. And they're like, huh? We just walking down the street. We don't even know what's going on. We weren't even anywhere here an hour ago. Doesn't matter. Those people are already getting locked up.
Yep.
So the Biden administration is already rounding up innocent Trump-supporting Americans, and they're being raided every single day. So this is already happening in this country.
But it's a one-sided civil war,
right? Which is why you can say it's not a civil war. If people on the right take up arms and start resisting, now it's civil war.
Now it's a civil war. Yeah.
Where I think the appropriate path is Donald Trump is on a path to victory. We're winning culturally, and so the last thing we want is an escalation of violence to legitimize the things that the left is trying to do. They want the conflict because a civil war would allow them to destroy the Constitution and then overwrite this country and march in with boots, where a lot of regular people would just get on their knees and say, do whatever you want. So if Trump gets in and we actually start arresting and removing these people and have trials for them, then that's the victory.
I think if the culture is like hateful, it doesn't matter. Whoever gets in it's still going to happen. It's like 1932 Germany, like we have an opportunity to change people's minds before they adopt Nazism. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, but the right has the people call the right useless because they won't even file criminal charges against criminals. The circumstance in which Donald Trump takes power and then starts actually arresting, prosecuting, and like Rachel Maddow's psychotic statement, executing people is zero. Absolutely zero. Trump did nothing during the Summer of Love riots. He kept tweeting. What was he? He was tweeting Law and Order. That's all he was doing.
Well, so I have a friend who told me he was in the administration, but he told me that Trump wanted to do the National Guard, but he was advised not to because the military wouldn't do it. Like they would not follow his orders, and that it would cause an even bigger crisis to have military leaders.
Then Trump lost a long time ago.
No, I'm not saying.
But I don't know if that sounds a little bit extreme. If you instructed the National Guard be deployed or whatever because of mass riots, they'd just go stand on street corners.
But look at Portland, right? Like is the Oregon National Guard actually going to go into Portland and bring law and order to that city?
Donald Trump, if that was the case, if I was the president and someone said, if you call for law enforcement to stop these riots, they'll disobey the orders, and then it'll create a constitutional crisis where the president appears to have no authority, I'd be like, oh, I'll get on the TV right now. Let's roll. Let's roll, baby. Let's make sure everybody in Oregon hears me say, we want the violence in your neighborhoods to stop, and we are asking law enforcement to uphold the law. And then if they refuse to do it, then you say, okay, you are a lawless state and you are in insurrection. But it's fair that they wanted Trump to do this, to use the imagery and claim that Trump was a dictator who was rolling in tanks and all that stuff. That doesn't matter to me. If Trump was unwilling to shut down the riots out of fear of the perception, and all he was doing was tweeting law and order, then he was not an effective president. So I do think what's likely going to happen is, if Trump gets elected, is it just puts a dam in place. The Democrats have already, I mean, the Clinton Foundation's gone. I mean, they're bringing it back, I guess. Their fingers are crossed. But if Trump wins, then this machine is done. Already, with Kevin McCarthy losing the speakership, that's $1 billion in IOUs that are just toilet paper. So if we keep this up, culturally, we're winning. If politically we take it or even resist to a great degree, it's done. I think what they desperately need is violence. So again, back to the point about Gen Zers concerned about this, perhaps because many of them are progressive and they know what they are going to do. You know, it's kind of like a guy who buys fire insurance on his house and then a day later his house burns down. You're like, you were really concerned about your house burning down yesterday, and then it burned down, you know?
Convenient.
Yes. Hey, Gen Zers, you're really concerned about an upcoming disaster. Is there something going on in your mind? Have you been marching in protests? Right. You get the point. But who knows?
Yeah, I wonder from just that headline, that Daily Mail headline, if it's actually conflated. If there
is conflated.
That the people legitimately in the things that I am afraid of a civil war, and I have, because of that, I have ordered it, or they're just assuming they were afraid of a civil war.
No, they're phrasing it that way to get clicks. But the reality is 40% of Gen Z prepared for an emergency. A large portion, whatever that means, it could be 10%. It could be, I'd imagine at least be a double digits if you're saying a large portion or more than that, said they feared civil war. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.